Shalom, my lovely. We are on day 3 of our war with Iran, and big issues today have been all the Israelis that are trying to get home. There's some 100,000 Israelis that were expected to come home or because of the war want to come home, and that number is growing by 20,000 Israelis every day. Not to mention tourists that are stuck here. There's some, I believe, 20,000 tourists that were scheduled to go home and or aren't exactly used to all the noise that we are and are wanting to go home, and they are stuck as well. And so the solution that everyone is looking for is how to leave by sea. An interesting thing about when things get chaotic in Israel is that the instinct of Israelis is to want to come home. It is very difficult if you're Israeli and things break out here and there's war and conflict and we're being fired on and you're watching it from the outside. It's very, very interesting, because I remember during the in the beginning of the war between Russia and Ukraine, they were passing laws forbidding men of military age from leaving the country. And really, when October 7th happened, if you were following during that time, the country was flooded with Israelis that were on, trips and all sorts of stuff, and they just wanted to come home and fight. And so the same kind of instinct kicked in when Iran started firing on us. Everyone wants to come home. We want to be here for whatever happens. And the problem is there's no flights. Even El Al has canceled. El Al has been like the gold standard of no matter what's going on. There was maybe like 1 or 2 days during this entire war, the last year and a half, or almost 2 years, that there weren't flights to Israel or from Israel by El Al. But even El Al officially said today that until next Monday, all flights are canceled. Of course, other airlines are saying like July, August, maybe even October, some of them are not going to have flights to and from Tel Aviv, which is very sad, because I had flights to go to a family member's wedding that were canceled. In the meantime, we'll see what happens by late summer, but for right now, El Al has canceled until next Monday, which means there's a lot of Israelis are stuck overseas and they're really, really wanting to come home, and the number one way to do it is by sea. And this is really something that's very interesting, because if you kind of think strategically in our history book, otherwise known as the Bible, no matter how bad it got and how many enemy countries we were surrounded by, we always had the sea. We always had some sort of escape. We were never completely surrounded. And you'll find that really if you think about the way your life is, especially if you have a relationship with the Lord, that like things can come from all sides, but there's always like some little tiny place where you can escape. And so that is our sea. And so really they're just trying to find people, private yachts and ships and cruise ships and anything that's nearby. People are offering their services to get Israelis back into the country, to get anyone who is in the country that wants to leave. The more dangerous version of this is actually going through Jordan or Egypt. And the Israeli officials have warned against Israelis trying to come in through those routes, because as much as we have peace agreements with those countries, it doesn't mean that everybody in the country is exactly our friend. And so right now, the big issue that everyone's been dealing with has been, how do they get home? The other big issue that we've been dealing with today is the people who have abandoned their homes because they were hit by Iranian missiles last night, who were deliberately targeting civilians. And again, for people who are kind of questioning what the difference is between what Israel is doing and what Iran is doing, and you really legitimately want to understand, I don't mean you ideologues that are just trying to hate on Israel for no reason. Iran is targeting Tel Aviv, which is our most populated city. I'd say half the country's population is in the Tel Aviv metropolitan area, and that is the area that they're targeting. They actually sent out this video. I was really embarrassed for them, because they showed the building that they hit the first night. Oh, the first night that they were firing. The first night we attacked their military locations and killed their nuclear scientists, they were in shock. But the second night, when they started firing at us, they hit this apartment building, and then they sent out the next day this like graphic showing that Israel had planted F-35s inside these buildings, and these giant missiles like inside the building. And the thing is, if you've ever been to these apartments, they're so small, you can barely fit like a bed and a closet in these apartments. So the fact that they were trying to say that we were hiding F-35s, and I'm like, have you ever driven down the roads in Tel Aviv? You can barely get a tender, which is a pickup truck. You can barely get a pickup truck like to go down these streets. How exactly were you planning on getting that F-35 out of the city? There's no room. But in any case, they're trying. I appreciate their attempt at trying to convince the world that them firing on downtown Tel Aviv was because we put our F-35s in there. It's fantastic. But in any case, the people whose apartments were hit, some of them, and in fact, last night, there was a big apartment building that was hit, and the bomb shelter was down below, but it was a very, very large apartment building, and not everybody was down there. Anyone who was in the bomb shelter was safe, but there were people who either didn't make it there in time or for whatever reason weren't able to get down there, and many were killed, including 2 children, a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old. And so that whole area had to be abandoned because their ballistic missiles are so big, they literally take out half a city block. And they had to abandon their homes. And today there was today they came back and their homes were looted. And so it's a difficult thing to deal with, but I will update you on more tomorrow.